Welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about the road glide versus street glide debate. You get this one a lot. Some people get fired up about this one in a hurry. I love the fact that we have the options that we have. Harley makes two good bikes, and just in case those of you out there that might not know, they're the same bike. The road glide and street glide is the same bike. The only difference is the fairing. They're made on the same line. So is the Road King. So it comes down to personal preference. I wanted to talk about some of the differences between a road glide and a street glide and why I ended up with a road glide. So let me start by showing you my bike. So this is my bike. It's a 2020 road glide special. They call it River Rock Gray. But I love the bike. I had a street glide. So I've been 3 years on a street glide and 3 years now on a road glide. I want to talk about the differences that I've experienced in my opinion. I had a Dyna Y glide, and Y glide's not made for long rides. It's more for short rides, and it was a nice bike. I enjoyed it. My wife and I were out one day and stopped by a local Harley dealership in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we decided I'd never ridden a bagger. So she said, let's test drive one. So we rode the street glide, and I was hooked. I mean, the way it felt on the highway versus the Y glide, the stereo, the fairing, just the bags, the storage. I knew I was in trouble. I couldn't ride the Dyna Y glide back home. There's no way. So I had to trade my bike and ended up buying the street glide. And I drove the street glide from 2017 to 2020 and enjoyed the bike. Love the street glide. Hell, for forever, it's one of the best sellers that Harley has. A lot of people love that bat wing. They love that look. I do too. So my wife had an Indian bobber, and we were always telling her, you need to get a bigger bike. We go on these longer rides. So we were always giving her a hard time about having a smaller bike. We were at Harley one day, again, looking at bikes. Might have been picking something up, and we were looking at a road glide. The salesman come up, and he said, are you interested in a road glide? And I said, no, not really, but I was just looking at it. He said, you ever ridden one? And I said, no. So he said, I'll get a bike. We'll go for a ride. So we rode the road glide. My wife was on the back, and we went through some city driving, some turns, and then we ended up on the highway coming back. My wife commented to me on the back of the bike, I like the way this feels. I like the way it drives. I'm like, okay. Well, I like the way it felt too. It's different. It really is. There's a difference in how they feel and how they ride. So later on, whenever my wife decided she wanted to get her own bike, she bought a road glide. Kind of shocked me. I thought she'd go with a street glide. A lot of women go with a street glide. At first, a road glide can be, I don't know, the looks of it can be something that puts people off. The fairing, everything's out in front of you further than on a street glide, where a street glide's right up in front of you. But in my opinion, it's easier to ride a road glide than it is a street glide. So anyway, my wife ends up buying a road glide. Well, I'll show you her bike. This is her bike. 2020 also. So I had the street glide. She now had the black road glide. And sometimes she wasn't home. One night I decided I'm going to take her bike and drive it to the gym. Well, I got out on that bike and I didn't want to get off of it. Just the way the bike moved, the way it handled, the way it felt in the handlebars. There's a difference. So I ended up trading a street glide for a road glide. Now let me show you some of the differences that I've noticed that pointed me or pulled me to a road glide over a street glide. So this is a friend's street glide. It's in my garage. Nice little paint job here. Check that out. I think this is a 2008 twin cam. So one of the first things you'll notice when you're sitting on a street glide, everything's right here. It's close to you. It's right in front of you. Road glide, everything's further away. All this is out here away from you. Some people don't like that. It freaked me out at first. It's totally different. But I've come to like it. This down here, when you're riding, seems to block more wind from coming up. And I've got a big beard. I felt a big difference in lifting the beard and blowing it in my face. So this holds wind back, and I feel like I get good blockage from wind with this fairing as a whole. It looks almost like a cobra head from behind. With a Street Glide, you get a lot of wind coming up through here. So that was one thing, the fairing with as far as wind. Another thing, on a Road Glide, your handlebars are so easy to change. Take this off, change your bars out. On a Street Glide, all of this has to come out. All of it. Your handlebars are behind it. So all this has to come off. A lot more involved. Everything's independent. So the steering turns independent of the fairing, and that freaks some people out. To where when you turn this, it's all on the steering wheel, on the handlebars. Now, some people have talked about, well, I don't like the fact that when I turn my wheel, my headlight don't turn. Dude, you're not turning the wheel that far, okay? If you prefer your light turning versus not turning, that's not going to be a deal breaker for me, because there's no difference. This has two lights. Street Glide has one light. So that was a couple of things there that stood out to me, was the way it felt. When you're riding a Street Glide on the highway and you get beside a semi and you feel that vibration, that wind buffeting, it's hitting your fairing. It's hitting all this. Well, the wind that hits this, your hands are on the handlebars, which are mounted to this. It's all mounted together. So you feel more of the wind buffeting in the handlebars on a Street Glide, to where on a Road Glide, they're independent. One other thing I can't forget that I really enjoy about the Road Glide versus the Street Glide. Now this, as I said, is a 2008. There's really no storage on the fairing. The newer models have somewhat of a pocket right here, but it's very small. On the Road Glide, storage. More storage. This comes in handy in putting, when you need a little bit of a storage, phone chargers, garage door openers. Comes in handy having two pockets, one on each side of this fairing versus a Street Glide. In the beginning, I hated the Road Glides, not after I bought it, but before I owned one. And I'm referring mostly to the older models. I didn't like the two round headlights in the front, and it just didn't appeal to me, the fairing design. But when they came back out with this shark fairing, something about the headlights from the front, seeing this bike come down the road, I noticed myself being drawn to this bike more. I'd see them on the highway, and I ended up liking the way it looked coming down the highway. So the new shark fairing is, in my opinion, a way better looking fairing. Now that I've had the Road Glide for 3 years, and like I said earlier, I was on the Street Glide for 3 years, the way it feels on the highway at high speeds, it's smoother to me. It handles better in curves, feel less weight in the handlebar. It feels lighter, more agile. The wind blockage, especially with the beard, my Street Glide, it would end up in my face. So, and now I just like the look of a Road Glide. To me, it just looks better. So that's just my preferences. Some of the things that pulled me to the Road Glide over the Street Glide. Everybody's different though. But comment below. Tell me how you feel. What do you drive? Which one do you prefer and why? Sometimes it just comes down to looks. And the people that like the Street Glide, they're hooked on that bat fairing. That bat wing fairing, it looks good. And it really does. I still see a Street Glide and I like the way they look. So a lot of this could come down to looks. So I wanted to cover looks, which are subjective, and then the feel side while you're driving is what's pulled me mostly to a Road Glide. But now I'm kind of hooked on how a Road Glide looks, and to me it looks better now. But that's because I've been on it. So those of you that's never ridden a Road Glide, get on one and test drive it. You don't know what you don't know. The same goes for those on a Road Glide. If you've not ridden a Street Glide, get on one and give it a test drive. They're both great bikes, good options. I ended up going to a Road Glide, so did my wife, after having the Street Glide. And I think now I would stay with a Road Glide. But if you get on one and just drive it for a short distance, you're not going to get the full feel. With a Road Glide, you got to put it through different situations. Curves, mountains, twisties, highway cruising. That's when you start feeling a difference between it. Well, at least I feel a difference. So anyway, like I said, throw something in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, which one you prefer, why you prefer it, what you ride. I'd like to hear from you. I love to hear what everybody's opinion is. So I appreciate you joining me, watching the video, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.